Welcome back to the further adventures of the monad. I thought I would take the opportunity to look back at the last 30 presentations in the series, Further Adventures of the Monad. This series is a partial summary itself of my previous set of presentations, The Adventures of the Monad. This new set of presentations started by defining what the term Hylozoics means from a content perspective. Why have this concept rather than one that believes in a savior God or a prophet, for example? We have to be honest with ourselves. If we are setting out to explain not just the physical world around us, but the superphysical one as well, we are not going to rely just on our five senses and our objective observation. We are going to have to define the world around us subjectively. Hylozoics is a subjective framework that holds at its core that everything that exists is composed of matter. However, this matter has to also have two other components. It has to be in motion, and it displays one of four levels of consciousness: potential, passive, active, and self-aware. What makes Hylozoics easier to grasp than most belief systems is that it explains its ideas through the use of numbers. These numbers are related back to the degrees of manifestation of the three core principles of matter, motion, and consciousness. Where most religions get hung up on whether there is one God or multiple gods, Hylozoics focuses on the law. The universe is ruled by laws. One set is called the laws of nature. These present the matter and motion or energy aspects of the Holy Trinity of existence. The other major branch of law is the laws of life. These laws focus on the consciousness aspect of existence. Whereas the laws of nature can be objectively observed, the laws of life exist in our mind. Now, you know, or you should know by now, that our minds are not where we do our thinking. Consciousness cannot exist in a vacuum, but it is useful to have clear in your mind how these two branches of law focus on different aspects of reality, subjective and objective. The choice was then made to start at the very beginning and outline where the universe actually came from. Biblical references were used to highlight the juxtaposition of some kind of infinite mass of matter and a force that was about to animate it in some way. This pre-existent state is called the antiverse and is said to be composed of primordial matter. This matter has two unique properties. It is infinitely dense, yet at the same time it is infinitely elastic. Because the antiverse is infinitely dense, it has no space anywhere in it. If it has no space, there can be no dimension, so consequently, there are no limits to this mass of primordial matter. If this matter is always there and does not cycle, it does not experience time. It has no beginning or end. Because it is infinitely elastic, it can accommodate any other structure within it, say, for instance, a universe. This antiverse also has one other important characteristic which I did not dwell on in my previous presentations, and that is that it has limitless energy. Quite why this should be, I have not got a clue. I can get my head around why, if you have no time or space, you can be infinite. However, where limitless energy then came from into the equation, I do not know. All I can say, to give half an explanation, is that if matter, motion stroke energy, and consciousness are always present, then if matter is limitless, energy must be as well. What about consciousness then? Here it gets tricky, but it is worth having a stab at this conundrum. You have this mass of primordial matter, but it is unconscious. This makes it similar to primary matter, which we will get to shortly. Primary matter is termed as being potentially conscious. This is the same thing in essence. Consequently, you can say that the primordial matter present in the antiverse does display all three aspects of the Trinity. It has mass, it has energy, and it is potentially conscious. But hang on a minute. If the matter is so tightly packed, it cannot move because it has no space in which to do it. Where is the motion occurring? I guess here we have to resort to the same proposition used in the case of matter being potentially conscious, as is the case with primordial and primary matter. This is a useful concept because if motion has not been deployed yet, but it can be, you have an infinite number of ways this energy can be manifested. This occurs when it is given the space to rotate. That space is provided in a universe. So we ended up concluding that the antiverse is a limitless space that has no beginning and no end. It contains primordial matter in infinite quantities and limitless supplies of energy. It is not conscious, but could potentially exhibit any type of consciousness. Hence, the antiverse can be characterized as having limitless potential. This is all well and good, having limitless potential. But how do you then actuate anything? This brings us to the third presentation of the Further Adventures, where we looked at the concept of the absolute. The absolute stands differentiated from the antiverse. Whereas the antiverse has limitless potential, the absolute sets about creating a limited universe. But who or what is the absolute? Hylozoics defines an absolute as a monad, a topic I will get to shortly, that is fully conscious. So, in the deep, if you remember that metaphor, you have the waters. For the waters read primordial matter. This matter is undifferentiated and unconscious. The absolute is differentiated and fully conscious. Somehow, there must be a way to get from one state to the other. This is what this whole series of presentations sets out to highlight. Let's just start by assuming the absolute is already there. We will work out how it got there later. It is fully conscious and has access to the limitless reserves of the water that it is hovering over. We think of the absolute as being omnipotent or powerful, omnipresent, everywhere, and omniscient, all-knowing. Where does this absolute display all these characteristics? It can't be in the antiverse, because although the antiverse has limitless potential, it has done nothing until the light is switched on. Now, let us imagine you have a thought. That thought is subjective. It is inside wherever you happen to have that thought. Where can the absolute have this thought? It has to happen in its own field of consciousness within the antiverse, as there is nowhere else for it to go. The antiverse is everywhere. However, if the antiverse is infinitely elastic, it can accommodate any thought bubble without issue. So our absolute is a fully conscious monad that can objectively view the waters. It is also able to think, and when it does, it creates a bubble in the fabric of the antiverse. Say hello to a universe. A universe is a subjective thought bubble in the infinite potential that is the antiverse. The absolute looks out objectively at the antiverse and subjectively into a universe it has just dreamt up. There is something very important to grasp within the Hylozoic model. The absolute may be thinking a universe into existence, but just as you are not physically present in your thoughts, neither is the absolute physically present in its thought creation. This should put paid to the notion that somehow there is an infinite being that is actively involved in the minutiae of your infinitesimal existence. It is not mortified by all the sins you are committing. What the absolute does is set out the rules of the game we play. These are what is known as the laws of nature and the laws of life. If these laws were not there, the universe would be in chaos. Everything must conform to the law. There are no exceptions. God does not intervene and give dispensations as so many hope. God sets out the laws, and God is the law. That is what God is, the law. Other monads implement this law, and we will get to them in due course. At the end of this presentation, we have covered the themes presented in 3 of the Further Adventure series. We have outlined what Hylozoics sets out to achieve and how it does it. We have defined the starting point for all of creation, defining a space that cannot be defined. We then highlighted in the existence of this undefinable space, of the presence of a being that is fully conscious and capable of thinking a universe into being. Why should the Absolute want to do that? Find out in the next presentation. Thank you.